Yo! What's going on, guys? Today I'm bringing you the Ice Orb guide we have all been waiting for, and officially the part 2 to the original Wizard guide. Now, there have been some changes with the Wizard in general on this specific patch outside of the weapon for the Ice Orb to begin with. I will do my best to tell you the things that have changed with the Wizard in general throughout this video, as well as talking specifically about the Ice Orb. With that being said, let's get right into it with the talents. So with your traits, I know we went through a lot of these the last time when we went through the Fire Staff guide. However, I'm just going to go over the ones that kind of pertain to you with the Ice Orb here, and that is the third ring as well as mirror image, and elemental chaos, honestly, but everything else is really specifically for the Fire Staff. One of the things to keep in mind with these guide videos is, as I do them, with the game being in such early access, when they bring something out, there definitely isn't a whole lot of adjustments with every aspect of the traits and gear to match the weapon that came out. So honestly, as these seasons progress and we get into season 2 and they make changes, I foresee me just making extensions to these guides moving forward, just using these as a general baseline. And I'm trying to make them as future-proof as possible, but based off of playing this weapon, I know things are probably going to change about it, but I was trying to see if they were going to change them before I made the video, but they did not. But really, as far as the traits go with the Ice Orb, using this third ring slot is kind of the most important thing, and same thing with your mirror image. With that being said, let's hop into the skills. All right, so with the skills, again, as I mentioned, I'm expecting a lot of things to change with this weapon in the future, more so with the class, and you'll start to see why as I talk about the Ice Orb and how I play it and what kind of is the meta around it. Your weapon itself has its Frost form, which is your Q ability, and honestly, you don't have enough mana to use this ability. It is a last-ditch effort. This is a true button, and if you're hitting it, you're probably in a really bad situation to begin with, that the chances of you surviving are pretty slim. So you probably don't have enough mana to even use this, and the stamina to get away after you use it anyways. I just really don't use the Frost form. When I get to the overviews of some of the gameplay I have, I showed you an instance where it can be used effectively, but all in all, it is so unbelievably situational, it's best to just not even rely on it at all. The next one that we're going to be talking about is Arc Light Explosion, which is what we talked about in the Fire Staff. This is really the only skill you're worried about on the Ice Orb. I don't find myself ever using Time Warp or Gravity Well unless it's in some extreme circumstances, because honestly the class has too many mana issues to really be able to use its base kit, because its scrolls in this case just tend to be so much more valuable for the mana that you're using, that honestly it's between just using Arc Light Explosion and your spell scroll to make the Ice Orb work and function. The third one is Overload versus Overcharge, which we talked a little bit about those in the first one. The Ice Orb is an overload weapon for sure. Obviously, Overload is the one that you can evade, and when you're charging your Ice Orb, auto evade and dash. At the same time, this got a slight reduction in the distance that it travels from the patch, but all in all, this is still absolutely incredible to use. It also gives you 30% more damage. It is 100% an overload meta with the Ice Orb. And one of the things that I will tell you is I don't use it aggressively until it's more of like my final move. So I've officially transitioned using Overload as like an initiator to using it as a securer. So once I've done a lot of damage to somebody and they try to run away to reset, I pop Overload and I try to really get in their face fast, and they kind of don't expect it. And because you can change, or you can cover so much ground so quickly. You almost always secure the kills as long as you have some decent aim with it. So on all that's your skills on the Ice Orb, let's really get to the gear, where I think the build kind of takes its most shape with what the weapon actually is. Alright, so starting with the gear, let's start off with the weapon itself. The weapon I highly recommend using is the Tear of Ice. This one increases the distance covered by your Ice Slide. So the other option that may be usable would be the weapon that allows you to gain additional frostbite buildup on direct critical hits. Unfortunately, the weapon doesn't really function well with its auto attack, its left mouse button spamming. I prefer to charge attack because it just gets a little bit more value for me, but this is something that I foresee changing. The fact that the weapon itself between 1% and 99% charge does absolutely nothing, and you can't even headshot with it, feels very off to me. I think it's just one of those developmental things that they're probably going to change when they had the feedback in place, but as for now, I don't think it's going to change for the next couple of weeks, so it was worth at least getting this out there so you guys could start enjoying and learning the weapon. But if you prefer like left mouse button spamming, the Frozen Star may be beneficial to you, but in reality, frost buildup is very, very, very slow right now on the weapon, and I hardly ever really get it off by the time the enemies are dead, getting them frostbit, that is. So really, it's not even worth using in my opinion, and the other one is for Blizzard, which we're not even going to talk about Blizzard. That's how good Blizzard is. So Tear of Ice is definitely the way it goes for this specific weapon right now, because the ability, the Ice Orb is a very mobile weapon, and I really lean into the mobility, which you'll see with the rest of my gear that I choose, but the Tear of Ice just fits really, really well with it. The other pieces of gear that I have for my headpiece is the Worm Forged hat. So this hat hasn't got a lot of use, but I actually really enjoy it with this weapon because it pairs really well with the robes, that when you come out of invisibility and you have that mirror image up, if you ever trick your enemy, you get a moderate amount of stamina back when they damage your clones. So something that I started doing when I played Ice Orb was I decided that I wanted to start 1v2ing consistently and kind of play the game that way. So rather than being in solo lobbies now, I actually solo into duos. So having this constant stamina regeneration helping me reset is so valuable to me that this hat ends up being significantly better than the cone. And the cone just doesn't feel as good with overload as it does with overcharge. So for the Ice Orb, I definitely would say Warm Forged hat and the Warm Forged robe. As far as the pants go, because your class struggles so hard on energy and mana, the best one to put on is the Spellweaver pants. The chances of you being in a fight and being able to really get your ley line off and stand in it is very, very, very slim, but at least it might help a lot in PvE. But like I said, in PvP, the energy regeneration and your mana problems are expressively bad right now, and I foresee it getting changed in the future. And then the other one is your Spellweave shoulders, which is with the Time Warp. So something that I learned about these shoulders from the last time is when you Time Warp somebody and they come back to the Time Warp, if you actually charge your weapon, because you have overload selected as your actual 3 skill, you still get the teleport part of it. But in reality, and I'm not lying here, I get these shoulders because the drip is fire. There is no use to using Time Warp. There is no use to using Gravwell right now. It is a waste of mana, and your mana is just better spent on your spell scrolls and setting up for a combo, because once you're out of mana, you're dead. So you have to maximize the opportunity that you have with your mana, and there's just really no space for Time Warp or the Gravwell in the current meta with the class. There is some uses for the Time Warp, however, if like you're chasing somebody down and they're trying to run away and you're so oppressive in the fight fight that you didn't spend all your mana, you can use the Time Warp to bring them back. It just kind of throws off your entire setup because once you use Time Warp, you don't really have enough mana to do the rest of your combo, so you'll never be able to secure the kill. But displacing your enemy can be very, very helpful in a lot of situations when they're trying to run away from you. Outside of that, like I said, the drip is fire. Now, I'm also going to talk about rings on this class because the wizard in the Ice Orb actually functions very, very poorly without decent gear as well as rings. And the reason being is because the class suffers heavily on resources, and I would say it's probably one of the hardest classes to master that I've felt so far. It is so intricate, you almost have to be a piano player to even hit all the right buttons in the right order to make it function well. You eventually get into the flow of it and it becomes a little bit easier, but it was a very challenging start to learn this weapon, just based off of me trying to do it without all of these resources that the class really needs. So one, the class is definitely glass. You are so susceptible to damage that even mobs almost half hit you when they touch you. I run 3 health rings, which help offset a lot of that tissue that you feel because of the type of class you are. But the big part of this is the stam regeneration in there. So this 0.25 stamina regeneration allows you to regenerate your stamina at a pretty quick pace, allowing you to evade attack better and more times during a fight to stay safe. The weapon itself does not have a block, so you are susceptible to so many things that constantly being able to be on the move and evade attacking away from problems is really the savior of your class, and also your tech attack freeze. But we'll get into that when we get into Goldbrook. That's just a breakdown of the gear that I use. And as far as the spell scrolls that I keep bringing up, I only use 2 of them because of the ones that I can mass produce inside of the level 3 crafting table, and that's Frozen Cyclone and Lesser Invisibility. You can use Pyroblast and Meteor if you're good enough, but I personally think that both of those skills are just an absolute waste of mana, and you're starting to see the trend here. The class suffers with mana to an extreme point of feeling very, very, very bad. I foresee that getting fixed again, as I've mentioned, but that's the gear that I use to make it work really well. Now let's get into Goldbrook so I can show you some intricate parts of this weapon. And this might be the longest Goldbrook station yet. All right, let's get into it. All right, welcome to Goldbrook on the Ice Orb. I'm going to try to do this one as in-depth as I can, as it is a brand new weapon. So first thing we'll go over is its general attacks. You have a left mouse button that if you hit in the head, you can see it is applying a certain amount of frostbite, as well as like a 3 cast charge. Now, if you hit them in the chest, they obviously will do less. If you hit them in the head, it will do more. And then the other part of your left mouse button is charging it. Once you charge it and it hits max, it will do a lot of damage, and if it crits, it will pop a ley line. Now, one of the things to note about this is if the target is rooted by either frostbite or your tech attack, it is a guaranteed headshot. So because of your trait, you will sometimes crit naturally, and you'll have that ley line, and the ley line will do the same thing that it's always done, gives you a little bit of auto attack haste. And once they are rooted from frostbite and you hit them with it, it is a guaranteed headshot. Now, a combo that I like to use just off of the left mouse buttons is if you do a full attack and you auto attack right after, you see how I threw that second dagger in there? That does a lot of damage on somebody because they're not expecting it. So you have the 1, 2, 3 option, or you have the big heavy with the one after. And that's kind of what I prefer to play around because there's a lot of movement, like I said, with the class that I'll get into a little bit more to show you. But this is a very heavy draw class, in my opinion. Your right mouse button is Blizzard. We're not going to talk about Blizzard. It's useless. Don't use it. ever, for any reason, ever. No PvE, no PvP, don't use it. It costs mana and does nothing for you, so definitely don't do that. However, what you do want to do is your tech attack, which is your right mouse button and left mouse button, and it'll pulse out. This is your Ice Nova. And if you're up close to somebody and you do it, it will root them. And it roots them for about 2.25 seconds, giving you just enough time to tech attack into a full draw to proc the ley line, right? That's essentially one of the ways to use your tech attack. Now, your evade attack, right? If you evade and then tap, you do a slide. Evade attack, you do a slide. Evade attack, you do a slide. And my stamina is not going up. Alright, sorry about that. The match ended. Where were we? The evade attack. So the evade attack is where you get this slide ability. And this is essentially what I like to use as my movement ability. And at the very end of it, it actually gives you the same haste bonus as if you were standing in your ley line. So instead of having your ley line proc, you can just evade attack and then full draw relatively quickly. And if your aim is good enough, this is where you're able to throw the big one into that little one and hit them twice. So the evade attack, I personally love, which is why the stamina regen feels so nice. I mean, you can visibly see how much faster my stamina is going up because of those gems. Alright, and then the two other abilities that you need to really know about is your Frost Cyclone, which is the ability that we used in some of our combos with the Fire Staff. It is used again with the Ice Orb, and then the other one that I use is the Invisibility. And that's essentially all that you're going to use on the class, plus your Silence ability. Using all of those metrics, let's get into some of the combos so you have a better understanding of how I fight. So one of the first combos that I like to do is quite deadly. It is evade into an enemy, and when you're evading, attacking into an enemy, you can actually cancel the slide animation with a tech attack. So I slide into the enemies and hit them with a tech attack immediately. That's step one to practice. And then I throw the silence on the ground. Now the root from your tech attack is actually not enough to keep them standing still through that silence. So hold on, let me wait for my mana. I mentioned before you have mana problems. I wasn't kidding. So the full combo is evade attack, tech attack, silence, Frost Cyclone into a full heavy attack. And that's essentially what you're looking for on repeat as many times as you can, is wait for your mana to come up, evade attack, silence, Cyclone into a full draw attack with the follow-up shot afterwards. And then now that you have no mana, the only thing that you want to do is simply run around, evade away from your enemy. If they're a melee character and they get too close to you, immediately hit them with a tech attack and root them. And then once you have enough mana, we just fully repeat into the combo. Now, I haven't mentioned Overload yet because Overload is an ability that I use extremely aggressive at the end of a fight. I don't like to waste my Overload in the middle of a fight because I can use it to escape in a really bad situation, or I can use it to close the gap on somebody trying to set off a heal. Now, one combo here that you can use with the Ice Orb with Overload is when you proc your Overload, if you do an evade attack and then hold an attack afterwards, you will actually do the Overload teleport after the original slide, which saves you a little bit of mana. But for instance, let's say that there's somebody healing on the other side of this building, and I just did an absolute ton of damage to them. What I'm going to do is just use my Overload and get behind the building as fast as I can. And because I started with the tech attack, that quick draw on the full draw procs much quicker into the immediate headshot into the auto attack back. And if you landed your combo on them at least once, at this point they should already be close to death, if not dead. had you done any other sustaining damage in the middle of the fight. Now, those are my offensive abilities when I'm playing the class. I also have some defensive techs that I use as well. For instance, if I'm getting swarmed and I'm in the face of enemies, I'll hit him with a tech attack to an evade away into a full draw headshot. You're not going to be able to proc the ley line from this because there's just not enough time in between that route and you being able to full draw, even though it's sped up. But it is still going to be something that you can use that is relatively mana low cost and still effective to throw at your enemy. Tech attack, evade away, full draw, secondary attack, and then you can just kind of keep dancing around. You get more mana back. You go back in for your original pop, and then that's kind of how my combo is revolved around. Really, the rest of it is just trying to manage your resources. Make sure that you don't run out of stamina. Make sure that you're not running out of mana when you're not expecting to. And really playing the best combos you can around that order. With that being said, let's get right into the gameplay footage, and I'll show you a little bit what it looks like in practice. Alright, so as I've mentioned, I've been doing a lot of 1v2s to kind of sharpen up on my own skills for resetting as well as just generally trying to get better. I'm facing two wizards here, a Frost Wizard and a Fire Wizard. I stop his Time Warp immediately and stun him in there, and I did just enough damage to him that I immediately popped my Overload, and as you can see, I kind of tried to aggress into him. I missed, and now I have to deal with his friend next to me, who ends up getting hit really hard, and I hit him with my combo into the silence, and now he's taken a lot of damage, and I just suffocate the rest of it until he's dead, and now I just have to fight his friend in a little one-on-one, and I kind of put him to sleep. So in this fight, it actually ends up me being outgeared by a warrior and a priest in nighttime, and I try to hit my combo at the beginning here, and it completely botched, and the first thing that I think of in that moment is, well, it's time to run away. So this warrior's trying to come up to me. I'm trying to sneak away to actually silence and hit him without using the whole combo because he was over-aggressing. I was able to punish him, and as he's trying to close ground, I try to poke his teammate in the back. This is probably one of the most dangerous situations I could be in, which is tethered to the ground in front of a warrior. I kind of danced around it well and got out of the situation, and he's just taking an immense amount of poke. And if you go back and rewatch, I danced in the pocket and was still able to deal damage to him. And now it just ends up being a 1v1 with the priest, where I'm looking for an opportunity to kind of all in. He actually pokes me quite hard. He's got a little bit better gear than me, and inevitably he stamps out in front of me, and I just kill him dead. In some of my last videos, it was requested that I started showing you guys some gear, so I did show you guys some of the gear in some of these fights as well. As you can see, that warrior was blue gemmed weapons, and his buddy over here had a blue gemmed shoulder piece, and I'm still rocking a white weapon. This is the fight that I mentioned I actually used my frost armor well, and as you can see, I started the fight pretty aggressively by killing him, and then I get hooked with no stamina left to go. I popped my frost armor, which stopped me from getting staggered, and I threw my silence on the ground, and then I just started left attacking him in his face while saving some damage, and eventually just kind of took him down. And this next clip, I actually showed me losing here, but I wanted to show you why I lost this fight. So I was fighting these two, and I feel like I was winning this fight pretty strong for the most part. And as soon as this wizard tries to reset on me, I immediately pop my overload to aggress into him, and I couldn't get up the hill, and I missed that attack, and then the warrior was on me like white on rice, and I got time warped back into a stun, into a fireball. I managed to get out of there initially, and I probably could have lived had I used my invisibility right here, but I tried to go for a greedy heal, and I didn't drink any of my potions. I just kind of played the end of this really poorly, and it ends with me dying, but I get my revenge later on. This is the same match, actually. I queued back in looking for my revenge on that team, and I found a different team entirely, which was also a warrior wizard. I take that warrior out so quick that I poke his friend pretty hard as well, and now that I know he's in a bad way, I see him stammed out. I'm just going to close the gap slowly and hit him with my combo, and he's just going to drop. And I thought that the fight was over and it would be fine, but as soon as I start attacking this wolf, there's another person. You think getting third-partied in solos is bad? Wait until it's a third-party in duos. I'm trying to deal with the mob as best I can so that I can reset, because I am really not interested in fighting this guy. I don't think he can close the gap on me right now, which is why I'm not too worried about it. I'm just killing the mob and trying to get my reset. This is the same team that I actually just lost to in the last clip, so I really lock in because I want to get my my revenge on him, and I get some charge power off of the body there, and I'm chasing him down. I have to really pay attention to what this warrior is doing, and I know that this wizard is looking for his magic stun here. Thank God he missed his big attack, because it kind of saved my life. And I'm just playing scared. His warrior friend stands out in front of me. This gentleman actually ended up coming into my stream after this. We had a nice little chat. And it was a really nice fight nonetheless from him. And it really showed his buddy some things as well. But I go right for the weak link because I can't help myself. And I get quite a bit of damage off on him, and then I switch targets when he thinks that it's time for him to aggress onto me, and he takes a little bit more damage than I think he expected, and I tried to hit him with my combo, but he stops my frost, and then he's able to get his off on me, but I poke him in the mouth pretty good, and then he's trying to run away and reset. I take a really aggressive reset here as well. His buddy's going to come up and try to get me. The second time I try to overload into him, it misses. His buddy gets hit with a full combo and dies here. And then now Firestaff Man is coming up to try to hit his combo and misses it. And I'm just kind of keeping my distance as best I can and trying to hit some auto attacks. I am not afraid to heal directly in front of this man because I have everything covered the minute he tries to over-aggress onto me, which is exactly what he does. And the minute he misses his Dragon Breath, I just have a field day and hit him fully with my combo. And that pretty much just kind of secludes the fight here. He does actually end up proccing Combustion on me after the fight ends, and I get down to 1 HP. But this is a really good fight with that wizard there. I actually executed him out of respect, and I even rezzed his new friend. But GG's, guys. That was an absolutely fun one. And that's going to do it for the Ice Orb. All in all, I'm going to be honest, I completely fell in love with this weapon, so much so that it has kind of forced me to feel like being a wizard main for the rest of the season, and I'm probably going to end up doing that specifically because I really did fall in love with this weapon. I think once some of these minor things get adjusted, the weapon is going to be extremely strong, and as you've seen if you watch the clips of me playing it, it's already pretty strong in the right hands. I'm able to do some pretty crazy things with this weapon because of how mobile it is, but moving forward, once they fix some of these other issues with it, I think even more combos are available and possible with the class, and I'm excited to really dive deep in that. If this video helped you guys at all, I would really greatly appreciate a like and a subscription. We are so unbelievably close to 1,000 subscribers. If you could help me get there, I promise to kiss a homie goodnight. But really, thank you guys so much for the support that you give me. Making these videos and seeing the feedback that you guys get and how much you guys love them is fantastic. Keep sharing them with your friends. Keep showing them. Let's make Legacy the greatest game to ever exist. Welcome everybody who just recently came in from the Steam Summer Sales event. This is one of the best games of all time, and I care about it so unbelievably much, and I'm glad to have you guys here. If you ever want to watch me live, I stream on Twitch and YouTube, and honestly now Kick as well, every day of the week, Monday through Friday, from 9 to 5, and honestly sometimes more because I have a bit of an addiction problem to Legacy. My Twitch name is right here. It's my house name as well as my character name. And if you need help finding my YouTube, talk to a doctor. You might have dementia. Thank you guys so much for watching this. This was absolutely awesome to make. I fell in love with the weapon. And until next time, peace.